Welcome to r/Maliciouscompliance, where your wish is my command. I had a landlord in the past who slipped a 90-day notice requirement into the rental contract after I'd signed it. I was house hunting, so at the end of my lease, I asked to go to a month-to-month lease to make it easier to leave when the time came. Landlord and I agreed to a higher monthly price to compensate them for the lack of security, and I signed the contract at the office of a business they also own downstairs. The landlord wasn't actually present, but one of their employees handled it. So contract is signed, and they go to make me a copy for the records, but are having an issue with the copier. After a few minutes, they ask if they can text me when they get it to work. I naively agree and head upstairs. 30 minutes later, they text me saying they got the copier to work and I can come pick up my copy. I didn't think to double check everything at the time. So for the next few months, I just pay my monthly rent while I look for a home. Finally found the right place, and the closing date was about 4 weeks out, so I immediately notified my landlord that I would be leaving on said date. The landlord responds that it's nice that I found a home, but I would be responsible for the next 2 months' rent after that as well, due to the 90-day notification requirement in the contract. I'm totally confused, so I go check my copy of the contract, and sure enough, there's a stipulation in there about that. I also noticed that my initials from the top and bottom of each page, verifying that I've read that page, have somehow mysteriously shifted to being doubled up at the top of the page after the stipulation, with none on the bottom of that actual page. This was because they had inserted 2 lines of text detailing the 90-day report requirement after I'd already signed the paperwork. They didn't notice the formatting error it created, which was a dead giveaway of what was going on. I inform the landlord of this and notify him that this is not a legally binding contract due to this issue, and state that I will not be paying any further rent beyond this month and expect my deposit back without penalty. Unfortunately, he persists with stating that this is a legally binding contract and he will pursue it in court in addition to withholding my deposit if I fail to pay, blah blah blah. I know I'm legally in the right, but I don't want to have to deal with courts to settle it as it takes forever, so I come up with an alternative plan. The one thing he hadn't thought about was the fact that the contract included all utilities, as the unit didn't have separate meters and didn't have any language forbidding excessive use of them. It just so happened to be a particularly cold winter. So I informed my landlord that if he wanted to persist with his demands, I would be inclined to leave all the windows open, crank up the heat as high as it would go, open the refrigerator door, run the water 24/7, etc. And if he entered the apartment without my permission to turn off any of these items, I would report him to the police. I got confirmation that he would not pursue the extra month's rent or the security deposit within 20 minutes. Then we have a contribution from Hefe 4 Fingers down in the comments. I had a landlord call me while I was in class to come home because he had entered the front door and my dog had backed him up against the door and wouldn't let him move. At all. I let him know it was finals week, he showed up unannounced, and I couldn't leave but would be home as soon as class let out. I walked slow home. When I walked in the back door, sure enough, my dog was sitting in front of him with his back to the door. If he so much as twitched his finger, she started growling and showing teeth. He tried to say that I would have to cage the dog as it was his house and he should be able to come in whenever he needed to. I let him know that he must provide 48 hours notice before entering the property, and the next time I would take it to court and win. Bought that dog a fillet that night. Good girl. Our next Reddit post is from Katakoba. This happened at work some time ago. The vendor is a legal services company we're required to use with one of our 2 clients. We'd prefer anybody else as they're pretty slow, expensive, and have been jerks to us for years. Apparently because we had the audacity to not use them exclusively. We missed paying one bill for this vendor on a case, likely got misplaced in the wrong stack. As soon as we noticed this the next day, we paid it. Even hand-delivered the check to their office. It was a few days later they call us, demanding that we need to also pay the court-mandated late payment fine. These vendors are to be paid for their service within X days of date it was rendered, or there's a small fine paid to the vendor. By this point, we figured out that in our rush to pay them that other morning, we accidentally also mailed them a second check, paying them twice. We tell them this, and to just consider that the fine payment. They didn't care for this and said that they were going to take this to court to have a judge make us also pay them the late fee. We agree because this is going to be funny and get a hearing date calendared. It ended up being a 5-minute hearing. The judge agrees that we need to pay the fine since it was indeed paid late, but because we had accidentally paid them twice already, he orders them to pay us back the difference of $200 and some change. Judge then spent the next 4 minutes berating them for being petty. So instead of getting paid double, they needed to be jerks and spend time and money for their lawyer to go to court for 5 minutes to then be ordered to pay us back most of an overpayment. Then Quad down in the comments adds this. He quotes, "They've been jerks to us for years, apparently because we have the audacity to not use them exclusively." And he adds, "How to ensure that you become an exclusive vendor? Take the client to court over a petty issue." Yeah, that should do it. Then Burner Account adds this. "We won a contract with a government shipbuilder once, and our competitor sued us and dragged the shipbuilder into it, costing them tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. The lawsuit was just absurd, but the competitor had a lot more money than we did and knew that the legal fees would kill our cash flow. It pissed the builder off so badly we were made a sole source vendor, which meant the equipment didn't even go out for bid when it came time to renew the contract. The order went straight to us. We spent about $70,000 in legal fees defending ourselves, but they ended up building more than double the number of boats that were in the original contract, and we were selling about $120,000 worth of equipment for each one. It ended up being very lucrative for us and carried us through the recession without having to lay off any of our staff." Our next Reddit post is from Seth Borf. "I work as a mechanic at a manufacturing plant in Nowhere, America, and I've been for over a decade now. Before I got assigned to my current location, the only way to get coffee here was to either bring some from home or pay $1 at a vending machine to get the sucky, cheap stuff. I decided to go with the first option, but took it even further by bringing my spare coffee maker from home and then bringing in the usual supplies periodically. I kept it in the mechanic's office in plain view. For the longest time, it was very apparent that I was the only one using my coffee maker, even though I never said it was exclusively for me. This went on for about a year until I got a partner on my shift who also drank coffee. We came up with the idea of starting a coffee fund by leaving a jar for spare change next to the coffee maker. Whenever we ran out of something like sugar or whatever, one of the two of us would use the accumulated change in the jar to help replenish our supplies. This was all well and good until my partner got promoted to maintenance supervisor some years later, making him my new boss, and I was by myself again. I left the jar sitting next to the coffee maker as usual and kept using the old routine. I also put a note on the side of the maker in plain view that said, "If you use the coffee maker, please put some spare change in the coffee fund jar so we can keep the supplies in stock." This was just in case someone from a different shift decided to use it when I wasn't there. However, one day I noticed that I was running out of sugar way too fast. I don't put much sugar in my coffee to begin with, so this told me that someone else was using the coffee maker. Eventually, I noticed that all the supplies were getting too low too fast, and not just the sugar. This normally wouldn't be a big deal, except I also noticed that the jar wouldn't accumulate like it used to. It either had the change I put into it, or someone would be taking change out but not restocking our coffee supplies. I put up with this for a little while, but I eventually got fed up with being the only one buying supplies for the coffee while one or more others were using it and taking money out of the jar. I took the coffee maker home and just started filling up my thermos with coffee and bringing it to work with me. About a week later, I get stopped in the aisle by a supervisor, not mine, as I'm trying to leave for the day. The following exchange occurs. "Hey, OP, what happened to the coffee maker? Did it break?" I was wondering who else was using it. Nah, it didn't break. I just got tired of people taking money out of the coffee fund jar without using said money to buy more supplies. I was still buying them out of pocket. "You took it home?" "Yeah, I've been using my thermos to bring coffee." "You can't just take company property like that. You weren't the only person using it. We all used it." "But it's my—" "You either bring that back or I'm reporting this to your boss and we'll see what he's going to do about it." "I'll bring it in if people will actually contribute to the fund instead of me having to buy everything out of pocket." "You'll do your job." "My job is to fix these machines, not be the company barista." "It better be in there tomorrow or I'm going to your boss about it." And he walked off before I could say anything else. The next day comes and I, of course, didn't bring my coffee maker back to the plant. At the end of my shift, he confronts me again. "OP, did you bring the coffee maker back?" Nah, I told you, I'm not going to be the only one supplying it. You can't just keep company property at home. That coffee maker has been in there for years and you need to bring it back. I know it's been in there for years. It's been in there for as long as I've been here because I brought it from home. That's my coffee maker. I'm calling your boss right now and we'll see what happens to you. I laugh. Go ahead, I don't care. You can't tell me what to do with my personal property. I then walk out to my car and leave. While on my way home, my boss calls me. If you recall from earlier in this story, he used to be my partner. Even after his promotion, we remained close friends. The following conversation happens. Hey Bob, what's up? I just got off the phone with Saul. What's all this about you taking company property home? That's not like you, man. What's he even talking about? He didn't tell you what it was? Nope. He just said you admitted to stealing company property and refused to return it. Did you even ask what the supposed company property is? I did, but he wouldn't calm down enough to tell me. Looked like you really pissed him off. Yeah, I know. Hey, you remember that coffee maker I had in my office way back when? Yeah, the coffee fund, right? Did anyone else besides us start using that thing? Man, did I ever tell you that I still haven't had a cup of coffee as good as how you made it back then? Why are you bringing this up anyway? Wait, don't tell me that's the company property Saul's referring to, is it? Yeah, he's talking about my coffee maker. Look, OP, I know that's your personal property, but I really don't want Saul raising a stink about this to management. Nothing will come of it if he does, but it'll just be a big waste of time for them to investigate and eventually write up some stupid company-wide email about property theft and blah blah blah. Just bring it back. I'm not going to be the only one supplying the coffee. How about this? Bring it back in, but keep a spare set of coffee supplies in your personal locker. Bring in some supplies for everyone to use at first. Even use the coffee fund jar again. But after that initial stock, just only resupply for yourself. That way, if Saul or anyone else wants to use it, they're going to have to bring in their own supplies when the initial stock runs dry. Is that okay with you? I think I'll do that. And that's what I did. The next day, I did as Bob asked, but I also kept additional supplies for myself in my personal locker. I didn't tell anyone else about this except for Bob. Saul confronted me yet again that same day. I see you brought the coffee maker back. Yeah, Bob asked me to. You're lucky he didn't report you to Human Resources for it. Report me to Human Resources for a coffee maker. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Now we can all have our coffee again, no thanks to you. No thanks to me, yet it's my coffee maker. Don't get that tone with me. I'll call Bob and he'll straighten you out again. As planned, I let the initial coffee supply stock run dry without ever replenishing it. I also didn't contribute anything to the coffee fund jar. This took about a week and there was never any change in the jar. Saul confronts me yet again. Hey, OP, we're completely out of creamer and sugar and the coffee tin itself is running low. Yeah, okay. Don't you think you should get on that? I'm not the company barista, Saul. Okay, but we don't have any creamer or sugar. Then buy some. I thought you did that. Oh, me? No, I had a surgery that prevents me from out creamer. Bring your own. OP, you need to do your job. I do my job. What do you do? OP? No. Saul, what do you do? Don't say your job, because your job isn't to pester someone to buy coffee supplies out of their own pocket, is it? That's not very nice. You're right, it's not very nice at all. It's also not nice to complain to Bob because I won't bring my own personal property to work, now is it? But we need coffee! Then bring your own. This isn't my job. If you want creamer, then you need to bring it in yourself. I'm not supplying the coffee anymore. OP, I'll call Bob again. Call him then. He'll tell you the same thing I just told you and you'll have wasted your time. Just like you're wasting my time now. I'm going home. Have a good one. I start walking out. Wait, come back! When I go in for my next shift, all the supplies are fully stocked. And they remain that way for good. Someone else has taken the responsibility of resupplying the coffee. I even noticed change in the jar regularly building up. I haven't contributed a single penny, but it's still filling up. Someone else has taken over handling the coffee supplies. I haven't asked who, but I think either Saul is doing it himself or he's got someone else doing it. It's free coffee for me, so I don't care either way. Our next Reddit post is from Sancta Magni. My mother hated my first girlfriend. I had actually been planning to become a Catholic priest and therefore to be celibate when I was in high school. So my mother saw my first girlfriend as having ruined my life's plan when we first got together. Now, naturally, my girlfriend and I wanted to spend as much time together as possible at that early stage of our relationship, but my mother did everything in her power to try to limit this. As such, one day, I asked if it was alright for my girlfriend to come over to our house, but my mother said, "No, not today." I wasn't particularly happy about this, especially because it was so obvious she was just being vindictive and had no good reason as to why. So I pressed her about it, and eventually, after much discussion, she agreed that my girlfriend could come over tomorrow, but not today. Again, this was vindictive because she knew that neither of us had as much free time the next day as we did on the day in question, so it would have meant way less time together for us. Nevertheless, I agreed to my mother's offer. So, right on the stroke of midnight, my girlfriend arrived at my house and I brought her inside. Immediately, my mother called me away into the kitchen and started getting very intensely angry that I hadn't done as I was told, because she said that she couldn't come over until tomorrow, to which I replied while gesturing to the clock, "But mother, it is tomorrow." That was rSlash Maliciouscompliance, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.